Hi, this is Keith with How to Build Your Own Home, and I want to talk about demo. How far should you really take a demo on a home, especially when you're remodeling and restoring a home? And I like to get down to the bone structure on a lot of things, but I don't like to tear out stuff that I don't need to tear out. And one of those happens to be a drywall. Right here we've got a hole in the wall that we actually deliberately created because I wanted to see what the insulation was like inside this wall. Now I've got a 2x4 wall here. This is an exterior wall. And of course, a lot of builders don't build with 2x4 walls anymore, mainly for structural insulation factors. It's a higher R value if you have a thicker wall with more insulation, all that. But what I've got in here is some really bad insulation. If I pull this out, and you look at the thickness of that, there's hardly any real insulation in there. Not even an R10. It's really terrible. So I didn't want to have to tear out all this drywall to put in new insulation. So I had my insulation subcontractor arrive yesterday. We walked through the whole thing and I go, I really need to replace this insulation because this is very inefficient. So what we decided to do is we're going to actually take some chalk lines and go right across the entire midline of the wall. We're going to take out the drywall, that whole section. We're going to reach in, pull out the insulation on the bottom, reach up, pull out the insulation from the top, and then we're going to put some netting in there. We're going to net blow down below and net blow up above and really get some good insulation in this entire home. That's a real cost-effective way to not have to tear out all that drywall. And on top of that, we're getting a far better R value and better insulation for the home. So we're going to solve the problem of not having to tear out all this drywall, but just taking a 1-foot section right here and making it clean and accessible. That avoids excessive demo of this room. Let's go for the entire perimeter of the house. Let's walk through and look at a couple of other issues with the home. Okay, we're on the floor here, and floors can be a real nightmare. This is an older home. It's about 40 years old, and you can see that it's had several layers of flooring here. We've got a linoleum floor here, and some really cheap particle board over here. Next layer down, we've got another layer of linoleum below that, and just below that, another cheap layer of particle board. And then, finally, we've got our plywood down here at the bottom. The problem is this floor squeaks everywhere. You can just hear it, the squeaking everywhere in this entire floor. You can hear it right there. Everywhere you walk, we've got that. So we've got to take down this and screw it down everywhere we possibly can. We've got some new 3/4 inch tongue and groove outside. We're going to put right on top of this after we secure this better to the rafters. But this is where a demo requires you to get all the way down to a real substrate that is the better substrate than all of this stuff. And for some reason back in the day when people wanted a new floor, they just covered the mess below. Let's just cover it with a new piece of particle board. Today sometimes it's a thinner sheet of OSB. And sometimes I can see that's necessary, but it just kept hiding and hiding the problems. And we have some swelling in the kitchen there because when this particle board gets wet, it just starts to swell and it starts to attract water. It's not a good substrate to put on. So this is an area where the demo requires that we've got to go all the way down to the base level, re-secure that to the floor joists, and then build from there. And we will put a new 3/4 inch substrate on top of this. So this is another issue that we're dealing with. Let's go downstairs. I want to show you some stuff we're dealing with down there. Okay, we're down here in the basement and we're in the floor here. And the floor, the concrete looks in good shape. I don't see a lot of cracks, but I do see some water issues. We're down in the basement here, the backyard here, where we do see some potential moisture that has come down through the basement. So I'm not going to put carpet back in this basement. I don't recommend carpets in basements. Basements have a tendency to have problems with moisture collection and leakage from the outside in. There's no real way for water to leave a basement unless you properly put some drainage into a basement. So we're going to grind this down, take it down as best we can, and either do some tile or some luxury vinyl in the basement here. I'm not too much of a fan of tile. I don't like the grout. The grout tends to just, oh, you got to clean that. It's nice and it's a little more permanent, but over time the grout doesn't do much for you. I know in the Philippines and some other places, they actually do tile with almost no grout. There's just almost a small hairline in there, or there's just a small amount of grout that they can put in there. And I'm seeing more and more homes actually go that route. I hate the 1/4 inch grout that you see on tile, and then you've got to clean that. So I'm probably leaning towards a more luxury vinyl on here, but I've got to solve for that. We've taken it all the way down. In the back room here, we had 4 layers of linoleum glued down on top of each other in the back area of the house. So we're having to scrape and take all that up as well. But we don't need to take off the drywall because there's no drywall on the wall here. This is solid concrete. And this is solid concrete, and we've got electrical plugs right inside the wall here and over there. So back in the day when this was poured, they actually incorporated the plugs and the outlets in the concrete when it was being poured. They had their conduit ready to go. This saved having to put a furred out wall on this wall. Now in a northern climate where it's really, really cold, you typically fur this out, insulate it, because you're going to have some wicking of cold through this wall. But I live in a very arid, very dry climate. We really don't have some cold temperatures here. So, but I do feel the wall get warmer as you move up, and it gets colder as you move down. So again, I talked with my insulation contractor yesterday, and he's got some ideas with that. He may end up putting a 3-inch foam, gluing it on there up to about this point, and it would come out through the entire room, and then we just put some drywall on top of that. Again, glue the drywall right to that 2 to 3 inch of foam, giving some insulation from this point on the way up, without having to, again, fur it out, trying to avoid some excessive costs. When I put a stud wall here and a stud wall over there, I'm taking 3.5 inches off the entire floor, room square footage, plus another 1/2 inch for the drywall. I'm just losing square footage. I'm increasing my cost. I'm not really saving much when it comes to down in this level here. So he's going to come in and put some rigid foam up here. Again, we got windows coming. Again, when it comes to demos, you can really go nuts on demos and trying to get them down to their bones. I do have some problems over here in this wall structure. At one point there was a fire in the house, and I can see that. So we're going to tear out this entire wall, tear out the entire ceiling, really get to some of the bones of what's going on. I'm worried about some electrical issues. And you can also see over here, there's just a lot of makeshift mechanical stuff that they put in right inside the closet there. And I've mentioned in the previous post, we're just going to abandon and dismantle the entire forced air system, because we're going to have living above and living below, and they're going to be completely separate. So we're going to do some mini split systems inside these rooms. Again, by gutting that and gutting this entire wall, we can actually find out some of the problems in there. Sometimes you really have to just pull a lot of things out and demo a lot of things. But sometimes if you look at it, we really don't need to cover that whole wall with a stud wall. We can do it halfway. We can actually avoid some of the problems with drywall. Like I said, upstairs, we can just take out a small section and we can still get insulation up and down. If you study it out and talk with some of your subcontractors, you can find out how far you have to go in tearing things out on a home. And one of the tricks that I look for on any kind of a rehab or restoration project, I want to look how well the actual structure is, the foundation. If you look through here, I've only got a micro crack going through the floor here. I don't have any real separation. I've been in homes where I've got a 1 to 2 inch separation in the foundation. Cracks that big right in the floor. These are all natural. These probably occurred just shortly after it was poured. And you can walk through the entire home and you see the same thing. You don't see any cracks through the hallway. I don't see any cracks in this main living other than a micro crack through here. So it's in a real stable shape given how old it is. It's of course dirty. It's got a lot of living in it that was never kept up. But we can pull a lot of that stuff off, and we can solve for a lot of problems. But sometimes I know a lot of people can walk through a home and say, oh my goodness, I don't want to get that. That's a terrible home. But I've actually rehabbed dozens of homes, and I've seen them at their worst. But if you can imagine them at their best, you can actually solve a lot of problems and make something that's really blighted or worn down or not well kept at all. You can actually bring that to life in a way that you can't even imagine. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. We'll give you some more posts on this as we move forward with the project, but there's a lot to do still. We've got concrete scheduled to be cut on Monday. I've got my carpenter coming later in the week to put a new subfloor on. We're going to seal off this stairs, have access in a separate way, expand bathrooms, cut into the concrete for a recessed shower. We have a lot to do. But once we get some of this structural stuff done and a lot of it really exposed, we can start to put the house back together. It's going to be a lot of fun. So check with us back on this one. And now I've got to go to another job. I'm getting it ready to wrap up. We're going to do a video on a very, very beautiful home that we've just completed. I'm excited about that. Look for a post. Make sure you like, subscribe, share the post. We're doing a great thing with this channel. A lot of people are now going to howtobuildyourownhome.com, checking it out. I've got courses there on how to be an owner builder without a general contractor. And I've got people on the program. I've got a really neat lady in California. She's in her mid-60s, building her own home. She's an owner builder, and she just broke ground. I've got dozens of people throughout the country learning how to do that on their own, and you can too. It's an overwhelming task. I'm not going to pull any punches. It's a huge, daunting task to be your own owner builder. But there's a process and there's a system you can go through, and I'm here to do the best I can to help you out. This is Keith Counts with How to Build Your Own Home. See me at howtobuildyourownhome.com.